Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
You got Luke.
Luke, today we're continuing our Companies That Built the World series.
There's a bit of an overlap with this one, too, because we did the dude.
We did the dude. So first off, a little clarification. They didn't build the World Series like baseball. It's our series on companies that built the world.
Yeah, major manufacturers and companies that contributed to life as itself as we know it.
Today, Westinghouse.
Westinghouse.
Big company.
Good old George
at some point.
Westinghouse.
I'm going to start us off with a fun fact.
Ooh.
You ready?
Yes.
Most people think Westinghouse Electric was started by George Westinghouse in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1886.
And they're not accurate in assuming that?
They would be correct, actually.
Oh, okay.
Was that not a fun fact?
That's a terrible fun fact.
Okay. Well, let's move on to what we're actually talking about. How about it?
Yeah. So George Westinghouse. If you haven't listened to our episode, make sure you check out the episode on good old GW.
That's a good one.
It was a good one. I enjoyed that because I like the Pittsburgh angle.
And we're told it's almost completely accurate.
Almost.
So that's good.
By the people that would know.
That's right.
But Westinghouse, so we can't talk about Westinghouse without talking about George. So if you don't feel like listening to the episode on George
Which I don't know why you wouldn't.
But let's say you don't.
Okay.
We're going to spend a couple minutes just talking about him, a little bit of his history, and kind of different things that he did up until he croaked, okay?
Let's hear it.
So, born October 6th, 1846, died March 12th, 1914, at the age of 67.
Not very long.
Went to college for 2 months, I believe.
Dropped out. Like all of them.
This is such
my goodness.
This is such a trend.
What are we teaching our kids?
I feel like it's a huge waste of time to go to college.
I'm going to stop handing out advice for, our future engineers that email us and just be like, hey, man, don't go.
But I think you got to go for a little bit.
Oh, drop out. Yeah.
They always go for a little bit and get a little bit of student loan and then drop out.
That's good.
Okay,
so continue on.
So he was born up in New York, and his father owned a farming manufacturing company that made equipment for farms and all kinds of farm stuff. So he learned at a super young age, how to build stuff. He was working in his father's shop all the time, and at the ripe old age of 13, he started working at his father's machine shop, which seems super dangerous.
When did you start working?
14 with a worker's
14?
Permit.
Oh, wow. Very good.
Pushing carts at Shop and Save.
That was my first job, too.
I was pretty good at it.
Nice.
Still have the record for pushing carts, just saying.
I bet.
So 13, he starts working. He wants to get into the war. Civil War breaks out. He wants to get in. He
wants to be like a soldier?
He wants to be a soldier.
Ooh.
His dad says, no, you can't do it. You got to do it at 17. So at 17, he actually does it. Goes in the Civil War, goes to the Civil War, enlists as a private, takes a test, and ends up becoming like an engineer and gets involved with like engineering stuff with the war effort. And then the war ends, and next thing you know, he's kind of back at his father's shop, doing things in engineering and designing things. And one of the biggest things that you think of when you think of George Westinghouse is the air brake.
Is it?
And do you know the story on the air brake?
I don't. Let's
so the
hear
story
it.
on the air brake is
I probably do.
At some young age, I'm going to say 12, I don't know, he sees these two trains coming at each other. And they're on the same track. And
that's no good.
It's never good. And the way you had to stop a train back then was each car had this big wheel on top you had to turn to engage the brakes of each individual car.
Yeah.
And basically, there was this huge crash, tons of blood and guts all over the place. George has nightmares about it and thinks, I got to figure out a way to do this. He invents the air brake, which can actually brake all of the cars at one time. There's this like flexible coupler whenever the cars go together. And basically, they still use that design nowadays for the way they stop trains nowadays.
Yeah, and that was our friends at Wabco that
Wabtec now, I think.
Wabtec now.
They're still in business. They still make air brakes, I'm guessing.
They do. So I used to work with them as part of a past life.
I did too.
Job. Did you really?
Crazy.
Yeah.
So when I worked for a reseller, we sold them software, did some training, that sort of stuff.
I did a lot of simulation stuff to understand the thermal issues that they would have.
I'm sure there's some.
Yeah, there were many. But anyways, okay, continue on.
So super involved in the rail industry. So he creates this thing called a frog, which allows
ribbit?
I don't know why it was called the frog, but it allowed whenever the tracks cross, it was basically that switch you see in the old timey movies where he shoots it with a gun and dings it, and then the track switches over. So it's a track switcher. They called it a frog. I don't know what that meant. Got involved in signaling because signaling was done with like oil lanterns and stuff like that. And then he started a company called Union Switch and Signal.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, this cat was super involved. And you would think that's enough, right?
I would think so.
All this locomotive stuff.
Yeah.
All this, you would think he would just stop there. Gets his first patent at age 19. When did you get your first patent?
14 with a permit.
And then decides to get into electric generation. And then I think that's where we're going to probably start a lot of this, because that's where Westinghouse kind of started.
Okay. Well, you can start a lot of it right there. So I was just going to throw a few things in there about his history, since we've already covered this. He basically, quit trying once he was an adult, and he just decided it's easier to buy stuff up from people like your boy,
my boy,
Nikola Tesla.
Friend of the show.
Who was just the worst at everything other than inventing, it turns out. So
well, I think a lot of super smart people are like that.
That's my problem.
You're too smart, so you're bad at everything else.
That's my excuse.
Okay, I see how it
Another
is.
fun fact, so we all know about the electricities, right?
Yep.
So Edison was his main competition, Westinghouse's.
Arch rival.
Big, not friends, not friendly with each other. He claimed AC power was too dangerous to be implemented, and its use would kill humans instantly.
And we told the story on the last podcast where he would kill cats.
Yeah.
Edison would kill cats all around Westinghouse's site and blame it. Oh, he's killing cats.
Yep. So I guess we can talk about the electricities a little bit, since that's where we're picking up, right? Yeah. So Westinghouse Electric installed the first AC power system in 91, so not 1991. It turns out it was 1891. And this was in Colorado. Telluride. That's what I'm going with. Telluride.
I think it's Telluride.
Oh, that's an E. Telluride. I don't have my glasses, and I'm getting pretty old, so...
Telluride.
It's rare that you get to correct me. That's great. Because, my pronunciation's so good.
Yep.
So they scored two big victories in 1893 when they provided a generating system that powered the World's Fair in Chicago. So if you haven't checked out our episode on that, go do it, where this is a big focus there as well. And then also the new hydroelectric power station at Niagara Falls.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you've ever been to Niagara Falls, you've taken any of those tours, it's really impressive.
Made of the Mist. Did you ever ride the Made of the Mist?
I have, yes. I don't like how it sprays you with
and they give you those
mist.
little cheap ponchos.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And then you see all the ponchos floating around in the river or below. Yeah. So Westinghouse's association with the company that he founded ended in 1910. So I think that's kind of weird, where, you go and work and you have this company named after you, and then you're like, yeah, I'm peacing out.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing he was old and sick then, because he died 4 years later, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, people just didn't live long back then.
That's true. I mean,
and do
dysentery.
you really want to work? Like, I mean, he was 67, I think, when he died. In our time, that's probably like if you lived to your 90s. Who wants to be working into their 90s?
Yeah. I don't.
I don't want to be working into my 40s.
I don't, me neither, and I'm not there yet.
I'm already past it.
Oh my goodness. So what else do you have about the electricities? Anything good?
No, it was basically he won. I mean,
he did. Yeah.
It came fun fact that I didn't pick up when we did our last research. So Thomas Edison combined with a company called Thomas Houston Electric Company, and they made General Electric.
Yeah.
I didn't remember catching this last time, which they were all on the DC power, and they were actually bigger than Westinghouse. And then Westinghouse changed their name to Westinghouse Electric Corporation in 1945, and they ended up winning the war. I mean, DC's still around, but AC is obviously the more predominant one that they use for commercial use. So
for sure. So before we jump into the 1910s, as I'm going to call it, the 10s, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
It's not Westinghouse and or CBS.
Wah, wah.
Because I think CBS is Westinghouse, or they bought them.
Hey,
I think we get into that a little bit later.
Don't spoiler this. We don't have a sponsor as per the usual, but we do have a lot of shout-outs because someone has been lazy with their emails.
I guess that's you.
At the time of this writing, I actually was all caught up on sending my emails and sending out stickers.
Okay.
But now I am not anymore. So Noah K. putting me in my place for poor choice of comments. I think I told you about those. If
Yeah.
you do check out the World's Fair one, you can find my poor comments. So thanks for
Yeah.
keeping me in line,
Yeah,
Noah.
quite a few.
Good guy. Jack W. doesn't like our top 10 inventions, but
What?
loves calculus and doesn't think that the wheel was an invention. How is the wheel not an invention?
Before that, they pushed stuff and carried it on their backs.
I don't understand.
Okay.
Jonas P. shamed me into finally sending him stickers. Also wants an episode on Python programming. I can guarantee one of those two things is going to happen.
The Python programming is a big old negatory.
Sorry. Alexis A. wants to know if we'll live on Mars someday. So check out that episode about terraforming Mars. I think we will.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't.
I feel like Elon and I will be up there.
You might, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, we're gonna do the first episode like from Earth and Mars together.
How
That's
cool
gonna
would
be
that
great.
be?
And then Mac G likes our civil jokes and knows way more about roundabouts than we do.
So is he a civil?
I can't remember. I think so.
Okay.
I think also works for the whole civil area.
Oh, okay.
So there's that. So if you want a shout out, just as amazing as those ones,
Yep.
email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And make sure you subscribe.
I would love that.
Yes, make sure you
Subscribe.
write us reviews.
We have so many reviews pouring in now, it's not even funny.
Pouring.
I don't even know what we're at. But, I did want to make an announcement. We are officially the third best podcast in Pittsburgh.
That's such a
Wah,
letdown.
wah. Yeah, so for all of you who voted for us, thank you very much for the support. And for those of you who didn't,
We hate you.
yeah, we hate you and stop listening. No, wait, no, don't do that. Maybe next year you'll vote.
Yeah.
But third's something. My wife says it's good.
Okay.
I think she just doesn't want me to cry.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the 1910s.
On to the 1910s. Tens?
Tens, that's what I said.
Okay.
So during the tens, the company accumulated patents. I told you how they're really good about
Lots.
buying those things.
So he had personally, I heard a stat, so fun fact, he would take out a patent on average every month and a half between age 15 and when he died, every month on average.
What
a month
was
and a
that?
half.
Really?
He wouldn't get it issued officially, but he would apply for the patent.
Wow.
And all these crazy ideas. And I saw some number, him personally, not the company, but him personally was somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, 124 patents, him
Wow.
personally.
Have you ever thought about getting a patent?
No.
Yeah, I'm not that smart either.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the 1910s, he accumulated a bunch around wireless communication, which blows my mind that was happening back then. So in 1919 and 1920, he joined RCA, GE, even though they were enemies, United Fruit, American Telephone and Telegraph Company, and Wireless Specialty Company, a real good name there, in a series of cross-licensing agreements to pave the way for radio. And so, like you've been saying, like we're talking about Westinghouse like it's this big manufacturing company, and it is, or it was. But really, radio was a big part of it. And it makes more sense as to how they diversified and now branched out into these different areas that are all that exists.
Do you know the first one, the first commercial radio station?
I do, but I'll let you say
was
it.
right here in beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA radio, still on the air.
Still on the air.
It was owned by Westinghouse at some point. And it's just crazy that the first radio station was KDKA and it was owned by Westinghouse. Now, granted, he died back in 1914, so he didn't
right.
see this. So, but it's just crazy. You go from electricity.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense, I guess. It's like the next evolution, what you do with it, right?
Right. Well, and they're trying to diversify, make their company more than just that. But yeah, KDKA was broadcast from the roof of the Westinghouse plant in East Pittsburgh, so right in my neck of the woods. And just for those of you who don't know, KDKA still boasts Pittsburgh's most watched news team. Boom. Is that something?
Stacy Smith is
I don't know if
KDKA?
Stacey is KDKA or not.
I think he is.
I don't really watch the news.
I do every now and
I
then.
like to live in ignorance.
Once in a blue moon. How about in 1928?
Ooh, let's hear
The
it.
first television camera tube was developed by Westinghouse, and they also started manufacturing elevators.
Oh, I saw that they started doing that, which seems like a...
I've been on a Westinghouse elevator because you
Have
normally
you?
see Otis, I think, is the typical elevator company that you see.
Is it ThyssenKrupp?
There's another one that begins with a T, but it's always Otis. And I remember being somewhere. I think it was a Westinghouse building, and of course they probably put a Westinghouse elevator in.
Or they might have. Well, never mind. I'm not going to say that.
Yeah.
Westinghouse missed their chance, even though they got on the ground floor of radio. They missed their big opportunity with getting in on television manufacturing. Some guy, Vladimir Zorjkin.
Nailed it.
Thank you. The inventor of the electronic picture tube began research at Westinghouse, so like you were saying, but his superiors were like, meh, that's pretty lame.
Who's going to watch stuff on a TV?
Right. And so RCA snatched this dude up, and turns out they were pretty big in the TVs back then. So that was kind of interesting that they could have had an opportunity, so they blew that one.
Yeah.
The first electrical appliances for consumers were also introduced in the 20s, and Westinghouse was up there in the front doing this sort of thing.
Acquisitions.
Yeah.
They bought a Coleman stove company, not Coleman that we think of.
We know,
Coleman,
right?
But a stove company, and
electric ranges.
That's where they got into it.
Yeah, and other small appliances, and they also had electric refrigerators in the 1930s, and later added washing machines. So I guess we're going to get into this later on as well, but when you start diversifying in such different ways, it's only going to lead to trouble, right?
I can't imagine it's a good thing to go from, I was joking earlier with James, from making nuclear reactors to kitchen knives.
Yeah.
Like literally kitchen knives.
Yeah.
If you go to Westinghouse page right now and you go to products, you can see kitchen knives, and then it says Westinghouse Nuclear as well. It's like, that just seems odd to me.
How is that a thing? Yeah. So war, I always talk about war. It was, again, a big contributor here. So in 1941, Westinghouse entered the military electronics business, and it became one of the leading contractors for radar, which was invented before World War II.
The first nuclear-powered submarine, the Nautilus, was designed by Westinghouse.
Was it really?
The reactor was a Westinghouse reactor. I don't know the year, but it was the submarine was the Nautilus.
As you know, nuclear-powered submarines and aircraft carriers are near and dear to my heart.
They are.
So that's very interesting. So a fun fact, sort of, but not really.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Westinghouse radar had provided a warning signal of the advance of Japanese planes going to Pearl Harbor.
What happened?
But it was assumed that the planes were American, and so they just ignored it, and the rest is history.
That stinks.
Isn't that something, though?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I never heard that before.
Yeah,
Did you make that up?
No, I didn't make that up.
I feel like you made that up.
I promise I did not make that up. That's not something I would joke about, Luke.
So what year are we at? Are we in the 1950s yet?
I say we're in the 50s.
Okay, so 1957, Westinghouse designs the first commercial nuclear power plant that is still in operation today in Beaver County, Pennsylvania.
Is that in Beaver County?
Can you believe that?
No,
I can't believe that's the first one.
Me neither. It's scary that it's
commercial. There may have been other power,
test ones,
like stuff like that. But
Penn State has a little test reactor.
Like the first one hooked up to houses. When you hit your switch, it's nuclear power. Yeah.
Is that how it works? You just plug your house
I'm fairly certain when I hit my switch, yeah.
Okay, well that's interesting. So I see that they were also real big around that time. So after the war, of course, a lot of their other business fell off because you don't need all the war's stuffs though. But submarine fleets, like you were saying, were still big, and so they nailed that contract. Mm-hmm. Did you have anything else in the 50s? I have a little bit in the 60s and 70s.
I got a big gap.
You got a big gap?
Like 57 and the 90s, basically.
So 60s and 70s, ups and downs with the cash monies, Yeah. And again, I think this is because, I have it written here. So it is. It's the decentralization of corporate authority. So what I read that as is we've acquired so many things and we leave so many people in charge that they just start blowing it.
And there's nothing. Budget. There's no strategic.
Right. It wasn't strategic enough. So, fun fact, one of Westinghouse efforts to diversify was with 7-Up Bottling Company.
Yeah, I saw that.
Of Los Angeles. They ended up getting rid of it in the 70s. And
that was no good. They did a lot of buying and then just selling it again.
Right. So in the 70s is when they really started to peel off a lot of these businesses. And a lot of them were real losers. And then a lot of them were 7-Up, where maybe you should have hung on to that one. I can't believe 7-Up's still around.
You don't like 7-Up?
I mean, it's fine, but you never get it at
Lemon lime
restaurant, or you never see it offered anywhere.
Yeah, Sprite.
How's it still in business?
Yeah.
I don't know. So bad things happened. April 1974, they received an order for 12 nuclear power systems from France, which is great, right? Well, then it turns out that France didn't really want all of those, and so that was less good. In late 1974, it sold its appliance business to White Consolidated Industries. And then in 75, a new guy, Robert Kirby, stepped up as CEO and declared that Westinghouse would get back to the basics. And so this is when it really started like getting rid of all sorts of stuff. But it also decided that it would become a uranium supplier. Did you see anything about this?
I didn't. I knew they were like obviously getting in the nuclear. I didn't realize they were a supplier.
So this is super interesting. After this, I'll take a quick break. But so along with peeling off a lot of these companies, they decide that they're going to start doing this whole uranium supplier side gig, I guess. And that's all great because it had agreed to supply utilities that purchased its reactors with a total of 65 million pounds of uranium concentrated over a 20-year period, okay? So at an average price of $9.50 a pound. So they're doing all these great things to try and like get the business back where it needs to be. So in 73, the price of uranium skyrockets over $40 a pound. Well, Westinghouse is already under contract for under $10 a pound selling this stuff, and they got to make a lot of it.
Yeah.
So Westinghouse is caught in this like really bad spot. The 27 utilities which that it had the contract with, like take them to court, and they decide that they have to live up to it. So it would have cost Westinghouse $2 billion, which was the entire worth of its shareholders' assets at the time, to like fulfill this. So Westinghouse eventually settled out of court in 1980 and paid something like $950 million in damages.
My goodness.
So this, when they're doing all these things to like bounce back, they get hit with this, and it really cripples
it seems
them.
like a good idea, but I feel like that's kind of like you're on both sides of the fence there. Like you're selling them the reactor. It's like, I'll sell you the reactor, and I'll give you the fuel for the reactor too at this price. But yeah, that seems a little shady to me.
Yeah. So before we move on to the 80s, which I think you love, right?
Yeah, we do a little bit of 80s.
Okay. Let's take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
So my rant isn't specifically about Westinghouse, but I'm going to use them as an example. And I kind of already gave the example. And this is when you take this, I'm going to say a super recognizable brand, Westinghouse, and then you just slap it on anything that kind of you think makes sense. So my example.
Or doesn't make sense.
My example is there's Westinghouse ceiling fans. There's Westinghouse TVs. There's Westinghouse knives. Literally knives that have a Westinghouse logo on them. And I don't know.
None of which Westinghouse manufactures.
I can't imagine they manufacture. If they do, correct us. But I doubt they manufacture them. I doubt they design them. It's probably, a brand of knives that they, just throw a sticker on that says Westinghouse. And this isn't just a Westinghouse issue. I know a lot of companies do this, but I just feel like it besmirches. Is that the word?
Is that a word? I like it.
Besmirching?
Okay.
So I feel like it kind of besmirches George Westinghouse's, his kind of legacy a little bit. I don't know if I would want my name on a set of steak knives.
I think it's interesting to make something so good. Like, your name is so good that, just 100 years later, people are just paying to use it? That's pretty neat.
Blenders, toasters, vacuum. It's crazy.
I agree. That's like people just slapping the Unprofessional Engineering name and logo on things, right?
Unprofessional Engineering steak knives.
If you're interested, hit us up.
Yeah, because we would love to sell out. We would love to sell out. Sorry. And that's not just Westinghouse. I'm not picking on Westinghouse or CBS or anybody like that. But there's just a lot of companies do this. And it's just, I don't know. It feels weird sometimes.
I agree.
Sorry.
I like it. That was a good rant. In 82, good year, that's when I was born.
Okay.
They acquired Unimation, which was a leading robot manufacturer. Westinghouse Broadcasting also expanded its cable television operation and acquired Teleprompter Corporation around that same time. In 82, it proposed, this would have been great, a joint cable venture with Walt Disney Company, but that fell through. Disney basically runs the world.
Yeah.
Now. It's amazing what they do. We really should look into them. That would be a great episode.
Ooh, it would be.
Yeah. So again, during the 80s, Westinghouse got a bunch of weapons contracts for the F-16 and the F-4E fighters, the B-52 bomber, the B-1B strategic bomber, and a bunch of other stuff like torpedoes and the Trident nuclear submarine. And in 85, the Wall Street Journal ranked Westinghouse as the nation's 13th largest defense contractor. So again, like, I never thought about them like that.
I just did some research on defense contractors for another episode we're doing, and I didn't even think about Westinghouse.
Yeah, me neither, because why would you? So in the 80s, they also joined up with companies like Mitsubishi, Toshiba, Hyundai, and Siemens on various projects. So they were, out there being friends.
So 1990.
Oh, the 90s.
It got kind of bad. I'm going to say it got bad again. So Westinghouse Air Brake, which was WABCO. It later became WABTech. So they lost about 18,000 employees.
Ouch. That's not a few.
Yeah, this is like early 90s, and they had like a record like multi-billion-dollar kind of loss in the 90s. So 1994, Westinghouse Electric, parts distributor owned by Westinghouse. It's purchased by Wesco International, and I've seen this company everywhere. I never realized that Wesco was. I didn't realize Westinghouse was purchased by Wesco, at least this brand.
Yeah, this piece.
And they still sell, these, electrical distributor components as Wesco. There's actually one, I think, right on the Parkway that I drive past all the time. So
I know that one. Yeah. Okay, continue on. What else happened in the 90s?
So the 90s. So Westinghouse Electric becomes CBS Corporation after merging with the television company, and stops trading as a public company after 111 years, which is bananas. So basically, I think it's 95 roughly is when Westinghouse as a company no longer was publicly traded. So that was basically the death of Westinghouse as a company. Now they use the name for branding purposes and whatnot.
A few cool things that happened in the early 90s. This is just because I think it's entertaining. Westinghouse's broadcasting division was venturing out and trying new things, and it had the distribution rights for popular shows such as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the now maybe less cool Cosby Show.
They're heroes in a half shell, James.
They are. Turtle power. Bad things happened, like you said. So in 93, Westinghouse sold its electric distribution and control unit to Eaton Corp for $1.1 billion.
1998, they sell off their nuclear business.
Oh, that hurts. Who'd they sell it to?
I'm not sure. I know Toshiba bought them. I think it was back in 2006, I believe. Toshiba acquires Westinghouse.
2006. In
$5.4 billion.
In 98, they sold it to British Nuclear
That's
Fuels
who it was.
Limited, which is something. The company is now headquartered under Toshiba in Westinghouse Electric Company, LLC. Headquartered in Cranberry Township, PA.
Yeah.
Represent. So that's something. But yeah, so now they're just CBS, and it's kind of weird how all that works. And what's that about?
Yeah, and right now I know that the nuclear business is struggling.
It is.
So this was there's some lawsuits with Duke Energy for some nuclear power plants down in Florida that's going on. And I saw that there's been some accusations of kind of some insider secret and trading and stealing information that was happening from China, actually back to Westinghouse up in Cranberry.
Oh, wow.
So I don't think they were doing the bad stuff. Someone else was stealing from them. They were being, what's the word I'm looking for, James?
I don't know.
Someone was taking advantage of Westinghouse. That's what I mean.
That's unfortunate. So what else happened in the later years? Anything good?
No, not a whole bunch.
Because it's pretty much gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's Toshiba. I mean, the name is the only thing that really exists anymore.
Yeah, and that's like you said, they kind of just sell that name out to, which is fine. That's how they make money.
That's how they make money.
That's something. I see your notes say PPG Industries has taken over the office space in Cranberry.
Yeah, the Cranberry, it got really big. whenever Toshiba bought them, and then it got really small.
Yeah, it did get really big there for a while.
Crazy
I remember
fast.
like seeing all the job openings there. I'm just trying to think of like, I don't know how big of a name Westinghouse is now. Like, would a 20-year-old know Westinghouse?
Probably not.
No, but
Unless you're buying a cheap television.
unless you're buying a television, right? But yeah, otherwise, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, it
Especially
is.
if you drive around Pittsburgh, there's still like a lot of like Westinghouse offices.
Every time I drive out the
research
parkway,
park.
I see the research park out by where your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
I drive out that way, and because that's where I used to go all the time for work. So.
I don't know what it does now, other than maybe sit empty.
I don't know.
Maybe there's something there.
I feel like it's kind of like Stranger Things.
Oh, that might be what it is. That would explain a lot
There's
of
an
the occurrences at
elevator
my
and-
house. Yeah. So if anyone does know in the Pittsburgh area what that research park does, let me know because, I'd like to know, and I should since I live next door. Anything else for you, Luke?
No, I think we're trying to stretch this out to be exactly 30
Oh,
minutes.
is it not 30 minutes? I don't
It
know.
is right now,
Oh,
so we can end it.
We can end it then. Hopefully everyone learned something about this. And if you have any companies to suggest that we should look into, let us know at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. Until next time.
See ya.